Coal is a combustible black or brownish-black sedimentary rock usually occurring in rock strata in layers or veins called coal beds or coal seams. The harder forms, such as anthracite coal, can be regarded as metamorphic rock because of later exposure to elevated temperature and pressure. Coal is composed primarily of carbon along with variable quantities of other elements, chiefly hydrogen, sulfur, oxygen, and nitrogen. Throughout history, coal has been used as an energy resource, primarily burned for the production of electricity or heat, and is also used for industrial purposes, such as refining metals. A fossil fuel, coal forms when dead plant matter is converted into peat, which in turn is converted into lignite, then sub-bituminous coal. After that, bituminous coal, and lastly anthracite. This involves biological and geological processes that take place over a long period. The United States Energy Information Administration estimates coal reserves at 701,194,800,948 times 109 short tons. One estimate for resources is 18,000 GT. Coal is the largest source of energy for the generation of electricity worldwide, as well as one of the largest worldwide anthropogenic sources of carbon dioxide releases. In 1999, world gross carbon dioxide emissions from coal usage were 8,666 million tons of carbon dioxide. In 2011, world gross emissions from coal usage were 14,416 million tons. Coal-fired electric power generation emits around 2,000 pounds of carbon dioxide for every megawatt-hour generated, which is almost double the approximately 1,100 pounds of carbon dioxide released by a natural gas-fired electric plant per megawatt-hour generated. Because of this higher carbon efficiency of natural gas generation, as the market in the United States has changed to reduce coal and increase natural gas generation, carbon dioxide emissions may have fallen. Those measured in the first quarter of 2012 were the lowest of any recorded for the first quarter of any year since 1992. In 2013, the head of the UN Climate Agency advised that most of the world's coal reserves should be left in the ground to avoid catastrophic global warming. Coal is extracted from the ground by coal mining, either underground by shaft mining, or at ground level by open-pit mining extraction. Since 1983, the world's top coal producer has been China. In 2011, China produced 3,520 million tons of coal, 49.5% of 7,695 million tons world coal production. In 2011, other large producers were United States, India, European Union and Australia. In 2010, the largest exporters were Australia with 328 million tons and Indonesia with 316 million tons, while the largest importers were Japan with 207 million tons, China with 195 million tons and South Korea with 126 million tons. The extraction of coal, its use in energy production and its byproducts are all associated with severe environmental and health effects. Globally, the use of coal is responsible for 44% of the world's total carbon dioxide emissions. Formation. At various times in the geologic past, the Earth had dense forests in low-lying wetland areas. Due to natural processes such as flooding, these forests were buried underneath soil. As more and more soil deposited over them, they were compressed. The temperature also rose as they sank deeper and deeper. As the process continued, the plant matter was protected from biodegradation and oxidation, usually by mud or acidic water. This trapped the carbon in immense peat bogs that were eventually covered and deeply buried by sediments. Under high pressure and high temperature, dead vegetation was slowly converted to coal. As coal contains mainly carbon, the conversion of dead vegetation into coal is called carbonization. The exception is the coal gap in the Permian Triassic extinction event, where coal is rare. Coal is known from Precambrian strata, which predate land plants. This coal is presumed to have originated from residues of algae ranks. As geological processes apply pressure to dead biotic material over time, under suitable conditions, its metamorphic grade increases successively into peat. Considered to be a precursor of coal, has industrial importance as a fuel in some regions, for example, Ireland and Finland. In its dehydrated form, peat is a highly effective absorbent for fuel and oil spills on land and water. It is also used as a conditioner for soil to make it more able to retain and slowly release water. Lignite, or brown coal, is the lowest rank of coal and used almost exclusively as fuel for electric power generation. Jet, a compact form of lignite, is sometimes polished and has been used as an ornamental stone since the Upper Paleolithic. Subbituminous coal, whose properties range from those of lignite to those of bituminous coal, is used primarily as fuel for steam electric power generation and is an important source of light aromatic hydrocarbons for the chemical synthesis industry. Bituminous coal is a dense sedimentary rock, usually black, but sometimes dark brown, often with well-defined bands of bright and dull material. It is used primarily as fuel in steam electric power generation, with substantial quantities used for heat and power applications in manufacturing and to make coke. Steam coal is a grade between bituminous coal and anthracite, once widely used as a fuel for steam locomotives. In this specialized use, it is sometimes known as sea coal. In the U.S., small steam coal was used as a fuel for domestic water heating. Anthracite, the highest rank of coal, is a harder, glossy black coal used primarily for residential and commercial space heating. It may be divided further into metamorphically altered bituminous coal and petrified oil, as from the deposits in Pennsylvania. Graphite is one of the more difficult coals to ignite and is not commonly used as fuel. It is mostly used in pencils, and when powdered, as a lubricant. The classification of coal is generally based on the content of volatiles. However, the exact classification varies between countries. According to the German classification, coal is classified as follows. The middle 6 grades in the table represent a progressive transition from the English language subbituminous to bituminous coal, while the last class is an approximate equivalent to anthracite, but more inclusive. Cannel coal is a variety of fine-grained, high-rank coal with significant hydrogen content. It consists primarily of xynite macerols, now termed liptonite. Hilt's law is a geological term that states that, in a small area, the deeper the coal, the higher its rank. The law holds true if the thermal gradient is entirely vertical, but metamorphism may cause lateral changes of rank, irrespective of depth. Content. Early uses as fuel. The earliest recognized use is from the Shenyang area of China 4000 BC, where Neolithic inhabitants had begun carving ornaments from black lignite. Coal from the Fushun mine in northeastern China was used to smelt copper as early as 1000 BCE. Marco Polo, the Italian who traveled to China in the 13th century, described coal as black stones, which burn like logs, and said coal was so plentiful, people could take 3 hot baths a week. In Europe, the earliest reference to the use of coal as fuel is from the geological treatise on stones by the Greek scientist Theophrastus. Among the materials that are dug because they are useful, those known as anthrakes coals are made of earth, and, once set on fire, they burn like charcoal. They are found in Liguria, and in Elis as one approaches Olympia by the mountain road, and they are used by those who work in metals. Theophrastus, on stones. Translation. Outcrop coal was used in Britain during the Bronze Age, where it has been detected as forming part of the composition of funeral pyres. In Roman Britain, with the exception of 2 modern fields, The Romans were exploiting coals in all the major coal fields in England and Wales by the end of the 2nd century AD. Evidence of trade in coal has been found at the Roman settlement at Heronbridge, near Chester, and in the fenlands of East Anglia, where coal from the Midlands was transported via the Cardyke for use in drying grain. Coal cinders have been found in the hearths of villas and Roman forts, particularly in Northumberland, dated to around AD 400. In the west of England, contemporary writers describe the wonder of a permanent brazier of coal on the altar of Minerva at Aquasculus. Although in fact easily accessible surface coal from what became the Somerset coalfield was in common use in quite lowly dwellings locally. Evidence of coal's use for ironworking in the city during the Roman period has been found. In Eschweiler, Rhineland, deposits of bituminous coal were used by the Romans for the smelting of iron ore. No evidence exists of the product being of great importance in Britain before the High Middle Ages. After about AD 1000, mineral coal came to be referred to as sea coal. In the 13th century, the wharf where the material arrived in London was known as Sea Coal Lane, so identified in a charter of King Henry III granted in 1253. Initially, the name was given because much coal was found on the shore, having fallen from the exposed coal seams on cliffs above or washed out of underwater coal outcrops, but by the time of Henry VIII, it was understood to derive from the way it was carried to London by sea. In 1257–59, coal from Newcastle upon Tyne was shipped to London for the smiths and lime burners building Westminster Abbey. Sea Coal Lane and Newcastle Lane, where coal was unloaded at wharves along the River Fleet, are still in existence. These easily accessible sources had largely become exhausted by the 13th century, when underground extraction by shaft mining or adits was developed. The alternative name was pit coal, because it came from mines. It was, however, the development of the Industrial Revolution that led to the large-scale use of coal, as the steam engine took over from the water wheel. In 1700, 5/6 of the world's coal was mined in Britain. Britain would have run out of suitable sites for water mills by the 1830s if coal had not been available as a source of energy. In 1947, there were some 750,000 miners in Britain, but by 2004, this had shrunk to some 5,000 miners working in around 20 collieries.